Sharks in the pool, that is not cool. I need the tools, take me to school. Feet first into this league, me first, that cannot be. Under the underdog, Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in with it, winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag, and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best, so I keep. Now, y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark, so I eat. Now, look, I am not sorry. I understood the pump from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So, thanks for the invite to party, yeah. Dynasty Underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty Underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Everyone, welcome to episode 137 of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman. What up, man?
Not much. I'm about to pass out from all these videos I've been recording for the DFF YouTube channel. I don't know if I got anything left in me, bro.
No, those are good. I'm glad you're doing this. They're short and they're fun, you know.
I heard a lot of confidence in that statement for sure.
No, I think they're fun. They're
I'm just getting started. You got to start somewhere, right? You know, you can't wait till you're perfect. That's for sure.
No, never get anything done.
That's what I'm saying. So I told my wife, I was like, if nothing else, people will get some laughs out of it and I'm having fun. So, you know, it's worth it in the end.
Well, I got one. I was gonna bring my fishing pole on tonight just for fun, but
you should have. Hey, you got to use the skills given you. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been a fisherman my whole life, and I don't really see much of that, so I'm like trying to you carve out a niche for yourself, something. Who knows?
I like it. All right, we got more news. Free agency is still going on, which is fun. It's I guess we call it like the second wave of free agency is what people like to call it, but let's hop right into it. We got some people to talk about.
NFL won't stop.
Won't stop. All right. Devin Singletary traded to the Houston Texans. Thoughts?
I guess it's good for Dameon Pierce, right? Like I've seen a lot of people really high on Pierce because of this, and I don't know why this would prevent them from adding another running back, whether it's through the draft or some other way. Like I don't think this means like Dameon Pierce is secure for years to come, like he is for this year. And obviously they have some pretty useful picks, so they can add to the team and build it up from here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a lukewarm ad, right? Like I'm not really stoked for Devin Singletary, and it doesn't move the needle much for me on Pierce, really.
Yeah, I guess I agree with most of that. I think we all know like any team could add a running back at any moment, and you could have like the Elijah Mitchells of the world come and mess up the Trey Sermons of the world.
Right.
That happens all the time. We talk about with draft capital and teams not being super tied down to a guy like Pierce. Lukewarm is a really good way to describe it. Like I don't know if it's good or bad. It just is what it is. I know that if you have Singletary, this is it's probably better than where he was. They don't really like to use the running backs as well as they could there in Buffalo. And I don't think this kills Dameon Pierce's value at all. Just another guy there. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. I think one of their coaching staff, they came from San Francisco, right? So, they're used to rolling out more than one running back. So this could be a good thing. Sorry. All right, next one. Damian Harris went to Buffalo.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it's a terrible spot for Harris. Like he kind of fills the Singletary role, but he's more of a goal line back.
Yeah.
So he falls into some touchdowns here more than he was with the Patriots, right? He's on a better offense. So I don't see how his value could decrease going to Buffalo. I think it only increases here. So if you have him, it's probably good. It's probably not worth selling because, again, like I don't think anybody's super high on him from this landing spot, but it's great for your team, right? Especially if you're a contender. I think he'll fill a nice, spot for you throughout the season, whether it's injury related or flex spot, whatever.
Yeah, again, I agree with all that because that's exact like feeling. Like I have one team where I am a contender, been second place last 2 seasons, and Harris is one of the guys that's been in my lineup, helping from time to time. And so for him to go to a team like Buffalo, I just feel better, more comfortable holding him or having him on my team, and a little less worried than I was like a few weeks ago. knowing that he's a free agent and just kind of wondering where the hell he's going to end up. Like ending up at Buffalo, you could kind of assume a role for him there, and it's a role that it will be worthwhile to put in like your flex spot, stuff like that. So. Next one, Cooks. Cooks gets traded to Dallas.
You got to be stoked about this, right?
I am. Yeah, Brandon Cooks he's older, but he's definitely like, I mean, it's just like playing Dynasty. Like he's a quote unquote win now piece. Like we needed a guy. I saw like a weird statistic, not weird, but just a statistic was saying that Dak Prescott last year threw into more like contested windows or closed windows than any other quarterback. It's just because the only wide receiver on that team that was able to get separation was CeeDee Lamb. There was just nobody else there, right? I mean, Michael Gallup coming off injury, Tolbert never actually came to fruition, and you had Dalton Schultz, and that's pretty much it. I know they made a trade for T.Y. Hilton like late in the year, but none of those guys are Brandon Cooks. I know Brandon Cooks is old, but he's gonna require attention, and if he doesn't get the attention he deserves, he will slice you up to the tune of 1,000 yards every season. So I do like it.
Yeah, I think it's a great addition. It's interesting watching them go from Amari Cooper to Brandon Cooks in the way that they did, and kind of not giving up this year, but they could have used Amari Cooper this past year or Brandon Cooks or something like that, and they kind of not wasted. I don't know how to really say it another way, but wasted a year of Ezekiel Elliott, good production from Pollard. And it's just weird seeing the whole machinations of that, but I guess they make it right here and get him a guy who can stretch the field, get CD open, get Michael Gallup still there. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah.
Right. So now Michael Gallup falls into the third wide receiver role, which you love. Like you got to love that for him. And he's probably going to take a step up this year. Yeah. It's great for the team. It's great for Dak. I love it I have Dak in a couple dynasty leagues, and I mean, it's great for him. He needs more weapons. He needs to be secure. And I think that's what they're doing for him.
Yeah, it's nice to see, obviously Cowboy talk, but it's nice to see this front office doing stuff that they haven't really done in the past. Normally,
just
last
doing
year,
stuff.
Yeah, last year they're the last one to sign an outside free agent, and that's just kind of what you
Right.
kind of get used to. And this year, okay, they look like they give a shit, so like that's exciting. I mean, we have a good team. We perennially have a decent team, but this actually looks like they really actually trying to win for once and not just, make it to the playoffs. So I like it.
You're hoping it pushes them over the top, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, sure. We have the draft still, and who knows what'll happen there. And sticking with Dallas, we have lost a free agent, Dalton Schultz. He headed to Houston. So, nice little swap there, little friendly Texas trade. Dalton Schultz, going to Houston, and then Cooks from Houston to Dallas. So, Dalton Schultz in Houston. How do you feel about that?
It's worse for him because he doesn't have a good quarterback, and Dak is a guy who kind of targets the middle of the field, dumps off to guys like Schultz. So it was a great spot for Schultz there. Now, if they get if they get Stroud in Houston or something like that, and he leans on Schultz year one, they don't really have that much there right now. They traded Cooks. What are we talking about? Nico Collins in the passing game, and
I don't.
That's it, right? Like there's somebody else there I'm not thinking of that's pretty booty, but it's there's nobody there. So it's Schultz now and the running backs for the moment. So I do think any quarterback that comes in there is going to probably lean on him. So it might not be that bad from a fantasy perspective. He might be pretty usable this coming year, but he's just so vanilla to me. Like I have no interest in Schultz at all. I haven't had for the past couple of years. So this one doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I agree. I like Schultz in Dallas in that offense,
Yeah.
But
I like that sentence. I like Schultz in Dallas.
Yeah. Going to another team, like I don't know if he's going to be the Dalton Schultz we know. Like we've seen other tight ends leave Dallas' system and go to other places and just not, really pan out. Given Escobar, or just other guys like that. And I think he's going to be kind of similar, but we shall see. I like the player and I hope the best for him. All right. Super exciting. Another signing for Dallas. Ronald Jones.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, are we just the Cowboys podcast now? Come on. Come on.
Well, that's a lot of Dallas trades.
Ronald Jones. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if Josh
Uh,
was here, we'd be talking about some third string a guard that Miami
for
signed
the
or something.
Miami Dolphins. Yes.
Bless his heart.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Ronald Jones. What do you think?
Ronald Jones. I don't think much.
No.
You gotta sell Tony Pollard. Like what? Yeah, Ronald Jones takeover, right? Ronald Jones takeover. Somebody's got to be that analyst this offseason. Somebody, right?
Yeah.
No, he's a pretty big nothing. I mean, he had some depth there, but they already have Malik Davis there, who I think is going to probably push him for a roster spot. And there's always the chance, like we've been hearing it, probably for the past few weeks, Bijan Robinson to the Cowboys, this, that, and the other. But I do think it's likely they spend decent capital on a running back, right? Day 1, day 2 capital on a running back, I think is probable for them. They just lost Zeke. They only have Pollard coming off an injury. And you're talking about Ronald Jones and Malik Davis. Like, they got to add somebody. They have to. So I don't think they're done. And I don't think Ronald Jones matters.
Yeah. Don't forget, we do have Rico Dowdle too. So.
Oh, God. Wow.
I know.
Talking to a Dallas fan here. The only person who knows him.
Well, you got to know your team. But yeah, it's a nothing burger. I think Ronald Jones will be fine in Dallas and will do probably what he's done everywhere else he's been. So he's just a guy. It is what it is. But just a guy.
Just a guy.
And that's fine.
He's allowed to be. Like, that's, no shade on Ronald Jones. It's all good.
Yeah. Speaking of guys, we have Isaiah McKenzie. He headed to Indianapolis.
I don't think that, honestly, like they not lost, but whatever. They no longer have, I feel like it's disrespectful to wide receivers to say they lost Paris Campbell, but they no longer have Paris Campbell. Disrespectful to wide receiver cores everywhere. Meanwhile, he's a sleeper in one of those YouTube videos that I was talking about. But again, the wide receiver core is pretty thin. They have just Michael Pittman, and Isaiah McKenzie's not bad. Like, if they add a quarterback who, can elevate the players around him, I think Isaiah McKenzie could play a role for this team. And I'm not saying go out there and buy him or anything, but he's probably worth free right now. So yeah, I mean, you could get him for nothing, probably on waivers eventually, or a 4th round pick if you need that, or you want some upside, because he has that ability as a player. But yeah, I think if you have him, he could turn into something.
It's possible.
I could see you looking at me like that's BS this whole time. But
well,
I thought it was an interesting spot for him because I feel like he's going to have a role there. Like, there's nobody else there, and they'll probably add somebody in the draft, but then he's going to fall into the slot role. And that's not a bad spot for it. Like, Paris Campbell was usable last year. Like, he had usable games. And if Isaiah McKenzie is Paris Campbell plus in that offense, then he's also going to have usable games, just a few more.
Okay. You talked me into it. I was thinking, because I made a trade. I might have made it with you if I'm remembering correctly, which I don't do often. But I had, Isaiah McKenzie was thrown in as a piece, and I was like, well, I'm kind of interested in like a cheap piece of the Buffalo offense. Like, sure, why not? He's a guy who could do stuff week to week. Who knows? But going to Indy, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on in Indy. It's hard to trust any of those pieces.
No, Buffalo is much better.
Hell, even Jonathan Taylor, you're like, I don't know, But
oh God, yeah.
I do love Jonathan Taylor. Just like they don't have anybody there to throw the ball.
I don't know. I think all it takes is them drafting AR or one of these quarterbacks that you like, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, Jonathan Taylor looks so much better. So I think we're being a little. I think we're being a little short-sighted with Jonathan Taylor, personally.
You're probably right. All right, next one. Carolina Panthers got themselves a new wide receiver 1 in the very young Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I know. I mean, we're at that point. Right? We're at that point with the free agency and all that. So,
I mean, I have him in a league, and granted, it's a C2C league, so he has negative value now. But if you have him in a league, like, what are you gonna do? He's just gonna sit on your roster until he fades away, right? Like, nobody's gonna buy him off this.
Yeah.
Maybe if they add Bryce Young, or maybe when they add a top quarterback, obviously they have the first pick. So when they add one of these guys, maybe he'll start getting excited and be like, oh, wow, cool. But honestly, his value is probably going to be the greatest in season when he's actually producing, if he does produce. Mm-hmm. So you know,
It's like I think I like him more in Carolina as being like, the target leader, possibly with probably CJ Stroud. They had the pro day today, and the Carolina Panthers front office was all over him. So
I see why. He looks great.
Yeah, so far it looks great. He's the best wide receiver on that team, but he's old, and time takes a toll on you. So I just think maybe you'll have more chances this season to actually put him in your lineup than last season. Although I put him in my lineup way more last season than I probably should have. And
I do think it's a better spot for him. But like, would you sell him for a third-round pick?
Would I? Yeah, I think so. You kind of have to, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But even though it's like a contender, like the three, say you came in, you made the playoffs last year, and you have like the 310. I'd spend 310 to get him. Just to add him. Just like maybe there's a couple of flex weeks where I don't know.
If you're thin at wide receiver and you want like a backup for that, like and you're a contender, like you said, you want to fill the depth up, and that's a guy who has some upside. And then, like you said, he's better situation for him as a target leader on that offense. So like I can buy into it for a third, but I'm wondering if anybody's even going to do that. But I do think you're right. You should probably take it, like especially a early third. If you're not contending, just move it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to get excited about some of these names, but we have a show to do.
I mean, you can't always talk about the top guys. I don't know what you're going to do.
All right, so this one is a twofold: Austin Hooper and OJ Howard to Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders are flushing out players, bringing in new players, revamping that whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like it in a way. I really like OJ Howard. Coming out of college, like I still think he's a stud. He just hasn't really had a stud career. And Austin Hooper is pretty athletic tight end there. Like it could be interesting to see what goes on, there with the Jimmy G. How do you feel about it?
OJ Howard plus Austin Hooper equals Darren Waller. That's the equation that they did over there, apparently, for the Raiders. I don't
technically
hate it.
2 nickels equals 10 cents.
Yeah, 2 nickels equals a dime. I get it. And honestly, production wise, they might get it out of him. Like I said, I'm not like I don't know. I think we did talk about this last week, but I'm not super high on Darren Waller. Like obviously the situation is great for him where he is, but he's just older and it's shaky. So that said, I think they can replace his production with it. If I'm excited about anybody, it's OJ Howard because he's really dirt cheap and he has the upside. Like Austin Hooper probably, he's probably going to be the one to catch 50 passes for like 400 yards and like, 3 touchdowns and you're just going to hate that. But OJ, you want OJ Howard to kind of take over and, pull away from Austin Hooper. We've never seen it, but that's who I'd bet on.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think a guy like OJ Howard might be out there in a couple of your waiver pools. So maybe, look into that once you're able to. Unless you're in the DU leagues, then forget about it. Just, don't look.
Don't even check. He's not there.
He's not there.
He'll be on Uriah's team and you'll see commish powers used.
Shit. All right. Next one. This is good. Elijah Moore to Cleveland. Like we had talked about, I think last season, is he going to get traded? He was in the doghouse. We don't know exactly what's going on with the front office there, but he wasn't happy with his role, and the team wasn't happy with him. And bringing in potentially Aaron Rodgers, they got Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson's there, Corey Davis is still there technically, and so they shipped off Elijah Moore to Cleveland. And I like this a lot. Yeah, I'm a huge Elijah Moore fan. Like I think he's a very talented wide receiver. And I think if Deshaun Watson could be anything close to what Deshaun Watson has been his entire career, excluding last year, this is really good because I think Elijah Moore is a baller.
Yeah, apparently Elijah Moore was not on the list of demands sent over by Aaron Rodgers. So yeah. I don't think he wanted to be talked back to by a young wide receiver. Yeah, I think this is great for Elijah Moore's value. I think we talked about him a month or two ago about should we buy him, should we not? There was a lot of like just wavering on it, I think. I didn't really test the waters, but probably should have. I think this is nice. He goes to a team with a much better quarterback than he had, and a guy who has, years ahead of him more than the quarterback that was going to be sent over to the Jets, and just more upside. So I think in this offense he has a solidified role. He's going to be the wide receiver too, right? I think there might be people out there. I saw a tweet that was like, Donovan Peoples-Jones, much better receiver than Elijah Moore. That was you retweeted.
Yeah,
that
was me. I'm like, what the?
That was former DFF Seth Bullock. He I don't know what he's thinking. He's out of his mind. But I think Elijah Moore steps right into the wide receiver 2 role there, and a lot of production. So gotta love it. And they're talking about this offseason, kind of fading off the run, moving on from Chubb and Hunt. And they'll probably still have Chubb, but they're talking a lot about that stuff, trade talks, and about passing the ball a lot more. And this is another, indication that they're giving Deshaun Watson kind of the reins and saying, look, we need to have the ball in your hand and pass the ball more this coming season. Yeah,
and I agree with that. The Cleveland Browns, going all the way back to when Sashi was there and in charge, it's a very analytics-driven football department. And I think everybody knows that when it comes like EPA and all those other things that matter. Throwing the ball is just better than running the ball all the time, and it's good for Chubb too. I think he'll have more opportunities. They'll be moving the ball a lot better with Donovan Peoples-Jones he's okay and he flashed last year, but he's not the same caliber wide receiver as Elijah Moore. He just isn't. Like I don't care if you want to look at like end of season PPR per game or results last year or whatever, and say, oh well. Donovan Peoples-Jones was this and Elijah Moore did that. Like the context matters. Last year was not a good year for Elijah Moore for a number of reasons, but it's not because he's not a good wide receiver. So having him paired up with Amari Cooper, I think this is going to be a pretty good offense.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones, don't get me wrong, big play threat, good receiver. I think he's actually, that wide receiver core is pretty nice now, right? Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, like those are 3 guys who can produce in the NFL, who can play in this league. So no shade on DPJ necessarily, but I just think that Elijah Moore has a lot more traits to offer a team. He's more versatile. Yeah.
All right. We talked about this last week. Eckler pursuing a trade.
Oh, did we? All right.
We mentioned it, but like, I don't think we really had this specific question. Like, say he does get traded, like which running back are you more interested in? Josh Kelly or Isaiah Spiller?
Yeah, it's like you want to say Josh Kelly, but I feel like it's one of those trick questions that's like Spiller's just going to kind of emerge. And
I think so.
We haven't seen it, but I think that's kind of where I'd place my bet. It's just a lot cheaper. You could definitely get him for a 4th round pick. Like you can get Spiller for a 4th round pick before Eckler's moved. So if you're interested in that backfield, they'll add somebody. I mean, they could be a Bijan Robinson team, right? So don't go crazy here or anything like that. But if it was anybody, I think Spiller would have the shot.
I agree. All right. 101 nonsense again. You say that Daniel Jeremiah has Richardson going 4th overall in the NFL draft. Did this come out today?
It was a day ago. I think it was yesterday.
Interesting.
So 4th overall currently would be the Colts. Am I wrong, or is that 5th?
I think they're 5th, but I mean they can move
Who's
up, right?
4th? Hold on. I just want to see who's 4th. 4th is the Colts right now, and then Seattle.
Okay, good. There you go.
Okay, so yeah, that would make sense, right? Look, like if Anthony Richardson is, first of all, Anthony Richardson goes 101 to the Carolina Panthers. How are we not selecting him 101 in our rookie drafts, right? Like, how are we not going with a guy who is the 1st overall pick, the most important position in our super flex leagues? I know we love Bijan, but I'm just wondering, like, if it gets to this point, like, how low will you let him go? Say you don't want to go 101, right? Okay, you're not that crazy. Are you picking him over? Are you picking over JSN? Are you picking over Bryce Young, Stroud? Like, what are the ramifications here for you if this happens? And Daniel Jeremiah, is not just like a talking head, you know, like he was a guy who was in the league. Like he made decisions, like he's an insider. He talks to these teams. So he's pretty accurate with this. So we were having this conversation in the DFF chat, like, sorry to jump in. I just wanted to say that, like, he's not just spewing BS. Like somebody told him that they're looking at him here. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a lot to that. So it goes back to your rookie drafts. And if we all play Superflex, most of us play Superflex. If a quarterback is selected 101, like, you can't ignore that in a rookie draft. Even if like you prefer Bryce Young, if he's your 101, but if Bryce Young goes 4th overall to Indy, like, I still think you have to give these NFL front offices credit. They do this better than we do year after year. If a quarterback goes 101, like Anthony Richardson, I think in Superflex drafts, you should be taking that quarterback. We talked about this with Bijan, weeks ago. I still find it a little bit funny that this is the first year since I've been playing Dynasty that a running back is considered ahead of a quarterback in Superflex. And when you add a guy like Anthony Richardson, who has all the skills to be, Lamar Jackson light, just not very accurate.
I like getting that. You got to get it in there. You got to get it in
it's
there.
The truth.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
You can't ignore that, right? So me, and being a person that is not fully on board with Richardson, for me, I'm trading down. I'm gonna go to the 102, and then from 102, I could decide, do I want to take CJ Stroud or Bijan? Honestly, I could see when push comes to shoves in a lot of these leagues, you might have a chance to get Bijan at 103. Maybe 20% of the leagues out there. I could see that actually happening.
That'd be insane. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
no,
I'm saying quarterbacks are really hard to come across in Superflex. That's just how I see it.
It's more given the community groupthink right now. The community groupthink, right? It's like I would just be surprised if we got there and he actually did fall and people finally came around. Like, and I'm not the only one saying this. John Hogue, Superflex dude, Superflex dude on Twitter, and Superflex Super Show. I was listening to his podcast the other day, and again, like I don't listen to that many podcasts. I do listen to a few still, but he's one of them that, like, I think he does such a good job solo and does long shows, and he just does good topics and everything. So definitely shout out him. Go listen. But it was funny, like a week or two after we talked about it originally, I was listening to him and he came around realizing that that QB is the pick if any suboptimal landing spot happens for Bijan, right? Because we talk about Bijan, like no matter what, he's ending up on the Chargers, Cowboys, somewhere where it's like, yes, but he could end up somewhere terrible. You know what I mean? Like you want him to go to Philly, you want him to go wherever, but he could end up somewhere that's just like has no quarterback, is a bad team, whatever. And that if that happens, then I think what Uriah is talking about, like him sliding down and these quarterbacks rising up, you just got to be prepared for it now and understand what you want to do. Like Uriah, that's a great solution to it for somebody who's just like not willing to take the risk on. Just move out, just move out, but definitely wait till you're on the clock. Like there's no reason to do it now. Wait till you're on the clock. Pickle just gain value. But I think we're coming around to the point where Bijan might not be the 101 if the NFL draft kind of turns the way that we're seeing these guys predict.
Yeah, I think this year more than ever, I'm kind of really interested to see how the 1-1 plays out. It kind of seems like for the last few years, like it was pretty set in stone. And for the longest time, it's been Bijan. But you can't, in Superflex, you can't afford to really ignore the NFL and the quarterbacks being selected in the first round. We're seeing mocks today where you have Hooker making it into the first round. Yep. That would give us 5. That's another point about the strength of is this a strong rookie draft or, mediocre rookie draft? We've been talking about 23 being a strong class for a long time. If you have 5 first-round quarterbacks going in the NFL, conceivably, if you're playing with what I consider a smart strategy players, you're going to have 5 quarterbacks going in the first round of your rookie draft.
Easily, yeah.
Right? You should, my theory and, the way I play is if a quarterback gets selected in the first round of the NFL draft, you should not let that player drop out of the first round of your rookie drafts. It just doesn't make any sense. We've seen it with, Mac Jones, he's fine, but we saw it with Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett getting close, Josh Allen years ago, and those are all mistakes. Plain and simple. So
Herbert, yeah,
Herbert, that's a big one. That was
everybody keep doing the Will Levis is trash. Max Duggan over Levis. Like I'm seeing so much of this now. Stetson Bennett over Levis, and whether it's a joke and you're just trying to play on how terrible he is, whatever, or how terrible you think he is. But yeah, go ahead, keep fading Will Levis. I'll select him at the end of the first, and I'll walk away with value for 2 years that I can trade, if I want to. You know what I mean? They just maintain value. Look at Zach Wilson, still maintain value until the end of last year. And only because Aaron Rodgers decided he wants to be a Jet, are we really even, speeding up the process of him losing all this value, right? I don't think it would happen that fast if he would probably be given another chance because he's a first round quarterback and they wouldn't have had a Hall of Famer coming in. So yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to take advantage of this. And I don't know if there's much to do up at the top other than, it's a great spot to be in the 1, 0, 2, 3 area for sure. But I think that, like you're talking about, if you want to try to foreshadow and say, yeah, there's going to be 5 quarterbacks selected, that's pushing down 5 positional players in the first round of your draft, going into the second round of your rookie drafts. It could be really valuable having some mid to late first, early to mid seconds, and kind of stocking up on those picks, because there could just be a ton of guys that fall into those slots, including, in your drafts. I'm sure Will Levis's, Hendon Hooker's, if they do go in the late first, they'll fall because they're not everybody's draft darlings. They're not everybody's favorite. And you'll get tons and tons of value in that, 1, 11, 12, 201, 202 to maybe even 205 spot with some of these running backs and wide receivers. So that's kind of I'm not, not a declaration because we don't know yet, but I do think that if you want to try to get ahead of the crowd, if it does end up falling that way, you're going to have a ton of value there if you do, buy into that area.
Exactly. Just real quick, I was looking at, quarterbacks who've kept value. We have Trey Lance, who's done nothing in the NFL. He just has potential to, be this game changer. Right now, according to Keep Trade Cut, you could, pivot from Najee Harris, who's sad to say, but he's coming up on a decline soon. Before we know it, we'll be like, oh, well, he's old and he's not getting a second contract and all that other stuff.
He already is. He was old before he came.
He was old when he entered the
Don't
league.
you remember?
You're right. But that's crazy, right? Because it was just 2 years ago, Najee 101, right?
Mm-hmm. Hey, listen,
then you have Trey Lance.
The consensus 101s, brother. Those running backs,
I know.
Man. Telling you.
You're looking at that, it's okay, well, you had a guy like Trey Lance who, again, hasn't done anything, but he's a quarterback in NFL, a quarterback he's toolsy, and he still holds that. So it's
toolsy.
He's toolsy, right?
I like that. I like that.
So you can't ignore that in your rookie drafts. You just absolutely can't. You don't have to keep these players, but you absolutely want to draft the guys that are going to hold value in your little portfolio. So,
yep, definitely. One thing I was going to say, this is what I was going to say, is that the other thing about the value with the quarterbacks and the decline, right? Okay, if a quarterback declines, right, at X value and a running back declines at X value, the quarterback is still more valuable than the running back because they started at, 10,000 points where the running back started at 5,000 points. So you can't judge the positions the same either. So, when you're looking at it, you have to understand that the value in the quarterback is so much greater. Even a loss in value is still going to put them above those guys. Like you're saying, like Najee and all that, you're still going to have a chance to get out of them, is my point, at a pretty high clip for pretty solid players. You're not going to lose too much return on your investment, even if you don't like them and they don't pan out year one. They do lose value for sure. Trevor Lawrence was a big one. He lost a lot of value. And he still had more value than most of these players. You know what I mean? And it bounced back.
And it bounced back in a big way.
In a way bigger way than
a running back ever could.
Ever. So you have him. You're talking, please, you could sell him for whatever you want, or you just have a guy for the next 8 to 10 years who's awesome. So
Exactly.
that there's just a massive difference in the values and what and kind of the loss and gain that can actually happen. The range of outcomes just majorly different, and that's why I am willing to kind of dive headfirst into the AR, into the Stroud. Like, just go, give me him. You're gonna pick him top 5. I'm gonna pick him top 5. Like, I'm good. I'm ready.
Yes.
You know, let's go.
I love it. That's a really good discussion. It's just interesting.
I thought it was.
Wait to see how it kind of pans out in all the leagues here in just a couple of months.
It's gonna be great.
All right. Last one, some nonsense here, news and nonsense. In our Discord, we got asked about Kyle Phillips. Now, Kyle Phillips, I know is the guy that you're pretty high on, not like to the moon or anything, but you liked him a tad bit more than most people. And he's one of those guys that, like, I think after a rookie draft, Kyle Phillips was still out there on waivers, and I just put all my fab on him. Just like, I was like, well, wide receiver 2 there. Let's see what happens. And so I think the question was, is he droppable?
Yeah, essentially, a lot of you probably have him on your taxi squad. I think I have him on the taxi squad. You got to make some tough decisions coming up. Do I drop him? I mean, it obviously matters who you're going to be dropping him for or what these decisions are. So obviously you got to kind of weigh those choices, weigh those options. But for me, the way I look at it is in a couple different ways, right? Like, first of all, team doesn't have a quarterback, so it's going to be a tough sled no matter what, right? But they could fix that. I mean, they have Tannehill. Don't get me wrong. So it might actually be okay with Tannehill, and we haven't actually seen him with a healthy Tannehill or a healthy Kyle Phillips. The spreadsheets, the historical data hates wide receivers who don't perform year one, no matter what. Yeah. So he has that going against him, but he is a technically sound receiver. Like, he's a guy who can get himself open because he's good at playing football, because he's good at playing the position. So looking at the depth chart, he currently is the starting slot wide receiver for the team. I'm not sure that's going to change because they have Treylon Burks. They have Nick Aquino Westbrook, who, he's not playing the slot and might not be playing any position for them. But I do think they spend enough capital on Kyle Phillips where they're going to keep him around. He's going to play the slot role for them this coming year, have a chance to bounce back. And his only real threat is Chiga Kwankwo, who is a real threat, who is a very real threat. But that's who his competition is on the team right now, and nothing else besides Treylon Burks, who he's not competing for targets for Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks getting his own targets. So yeah, I don't think you should drop him if you can help it, is my point. Like, I'd like to hold on to him and see if he can bounce back and gain some value and maybe just be like a flex play, a slot wide receiver who can get you 8 to 12 points a week.
I agree with all that.
All right.
Some combine leftovers. I'll let you take it away.
A lot of agreeing.
Smart, great minds, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to talk about a few guys that I think I forgot to mention on the podcast where we did the combine review or whatever the hell we called it that day. But there's just a couple guys. Marvin Mims is one guy who I think you should keep your eye on. Just pretty good route runner, better than I thought he was going to be. Just showed up well at the combine. Charlie Jones, who I did a video on. Go check out the Dynasty Football Factory YouTube page. Free. You can go check that out. It's awesome. But he showed up at the combine. Really good route runner. Really good hands. And then I went and saw his film. And yeah, both things. We talked about him last week. We did a prospect profile. Go check him out. Chase Brown, running back. He was out of Iowa. But this guy, he's being slept on. I think he's actually a pretty good running back. He showed up really well at the combine. Athletic testing was great. And the film is really good. So I like Chase Brown. And Puka Nacua, I think I wrote that wrong. But Puka Nacua out of BYU, big body receiver, interesting player. He looked better at the combine than I think he does on film as far as like the way that he moves. But even on the film, he looked pretty good. I did put out a video on him too, so you can go check that out. It's a quick one, just showing like 2 plays. But just some guys who I think stood out a little bit, who when I watched him at the combine, I was like, all right, that put me on notice. Let me go back and check the film. And I think they're going to be sleepers in drafts. Like, Chase Brown's probably a guy who'll fall into the 3rd round, but he has some juice. Like, he's a guy worth keeping your eye on for sure.
Yeah. Puka Nacua is a guy I'd never heard of. And yeah.
Really?
I went to the spreadsheets and looked, and, the spreadsheet likes him. There's nothing terrible about it. So
Yeah,
I don't have any of his combine metrics. I'm looking at Player Profiler right now, and they're usually pretty good at keeping this updated, but they don't have any of his workout metrics for the combine.
I'm wondering if I don't know if he ran the 40 or anything like that, but he ran the drills. Like he, caught passes and did that. So that's where I noticed him. I was like, wow, this guy moves a little better than I thought he did. Cause I have him in a Devy league. Like I've known about him a little bit. He was a pretty high recruit, bounced around a bit. And then he went to play with his brother at BYU at the end of his career. Yeah. So at the end of his career, he went to play with his brother, and you get the film on, you're like, wow, this guy, he's tough physical player. He also, I think he's a late bloomer. Like, I don't think he was a guy who played football his whole life and like started playing late in his, in his life. So I think that he's pretty raw, and there's potential there. Like if you can get on a team where there's a role for him and, good coaches develop him, like he could be something. He has a skill set for sure, but it's raw.
Cool. All right, let's hop into some trades and non-trades. I was trying to go back to, in the Discord, I know we've seen a couple trades and, the last 10 minutes before hopping on the show. I wasn't able to get all of them, but this is one I saw in one of my Dynasty leagues today, and I saw Tony Pollard get traded for the 111.
That's an interesting trade. That's a pretty fair trade, I'd say. Because I don't know how high of a first you can really get for Tony Pollard. Again, we've talked about this. He's older. He's coming off an injury. He's going to be good, but for how long? And do we know that he can handle a full workload? We've heard, you'll hear me say this 500 times if you listen to this podcast, but the Dallas coaches have said they don't like what they see when he has a massive workload. So that's what he's in for this season, and we'll see if he can hold up. But I think it's risky. So I think 111 is probably a good spot for a contender to grab him. Probably a good spot for a rebuilder to buy a pick.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts. I think that's like exact value. Like that's what you want. If you have Pollard, you want a 1 in front of that pick. Period.
Yeah.
I don't know much higher than 11 you're going to get.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ideally, you'd want, the 108 or something like that, but that's just not going to happen, especially if you have all these quarterbacks getting drafted in the first. There's going to be a lot of talent, more talent than Tony Pollard, or at least younger talent for sure, available to you there. So I think 111 is kind of that break point for Pollard. So I believe both these guys should be pretty happy with that trade.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one. I got another one here from the Discord. What do we think about this? So Ramondre Stevenson and a 2025 third for 23,104 and 2024 second. And I think this is 1 QB.
Okay. Ramondre Stevenson and a 25
third for the 104 and a second.
Oh, 104 and a second.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, I think it's sell season for Ramondre Stevenson, man. Like I was hearing
that's crazy.
I was hearing who was it, Jamie Eisenberg for CBS talk about how he would select him in the second of redrafts, right? And obviously that's redrafts, so the risk is not nearly as significant, but just kind of thinking on it, like in the second round, really? Like we're freaking high on Ramondre Stevenson. And I think this comes off the back of like Damian Harris being moved, and we the Patriots signed James Robinson, right? Which I don't know if we ever talked about, but that's not much either there. I mean, he's gonna work in a little bit, but he's Damian Harris, but bargain brand Damian Harris. But I think like all these things are making people very high on Ramondre Stevenson. Like, oh my goodness, he's got the full backfield to himself. But I know the Patriots better than this, and I just don't think that that's the way it's going to work out. And I wouldn't be surprised if they add another back in that backfield, or if Pierre Strong comes on and starts taking receptions away from Ramondre Stevenson. I just think that there's a lot of risk there, and I'm happy in 1 QB or not to get out in the top 5.
Yeah, that I didn't think you could probably get that for Ramondre, so I think I'm gonna have to go shopping.
Don't do it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go selling.
Definitely go selling.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ramondre. I know you really like Ramondre. You're one of the people that was higher on him. Yeah, big fan. Great player. But if you're gonna get 1.5 plus a second for, I don't know, picks 2 years out. Like, what's going on here? Like, he's good, but he ain't that good. So
and obviously you don't want to hold on to what you paid for a player necessarily, but just thinking about it, like Ramondre Stevenson was a 3rd round pick in rookie drafts, and you're telling me I can get the 105 for him? That player is going to have much more longevity than whatever player I got at that 3rd round pick. And that's the way you should be viewing it. Not necessarily, oh, it's a 3rd turn. No, it's this player is going to be so much more elite in trade, so much more longevity in, staying power in the NFL. Like, it's just, it makes no sense to hold on to Stevenson in that case.
Crazy.
Let me see. I thought I had one more. Let me make sure I don't. Okay. Well, let's see. What about this? Okay. This is an interesting one. Oh, wait, no. All right. That's it. Never mind.
All right. There'll be more
Waste
next week.
Time. Probably.
All right, cool. So we'll finish off this episode with another prospect profile, as we do this time of year. This is a good one because I put out a list of like 3 players, and you came back with Zach Charbonnet. And I've been wanting to talk about this guy for a while. And I'll be honest, like with the running backs, again, I have kind of a hard time really deciphering. There are just a few like key metrics that I think are important, and a lot of it, I have more for wide receivers. So I tend to watch running backs more than I do any other, position. And I really like Zach Charbonnet quite a bit. He was at Michigan for 2 years. He transferred to UCLA, and he looks really great. Like, to me, I remember saying this a while ago. Like, I think he reminds me a lot of Kerryon Johnson, which maybe people are like, well, I don't want any of that. But Kerryon Johnson was a good player. He was just injured a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, Zach Charbonnet, 0.5 yards per team pass attempt, PPR per game, age adjusted 5.9, which is, decent, puts him in the top 3rd of the class. 2 of the metrics that kind of really stand out, which have some legs when it comes to future production: 149 avoided tackles and 48 breakaways per attempt. So he's not a guy, according to the sheets, that really gets taken down easy. He's a big boy. He's coming in over 200 pounds. My guess is he's got pretty good vision and is not easy to take down. He has 3.8 average yards after contact, which also puts him kind of towards the top of the class. A lot of things to like about him. Seems like a guy that knows what he's doing out there and is not just going to fall down very easily. Just a big boy, big thumper. And I would like to see him on a team kind of like, I would like to see him paired up with the Chargers, him and Eckler, back to back.
Oh,
he'd be like a younger
don't
Melvin
get me
Gordon.
excited. I'm starting to sweat.
I think that honestly is probably the best landing spot for him.
Wow.
Or even my Dallas Cowboys.
I haven't even thought about that Chargers landing spot and how wow, that his value would go through the roof, man. That would be incredible.
He's a good player. So what do you see?
The NFL is gonna love Zach Charbonnet. He's a workhorse back. Yeah, he's a workhorse back. He's kind of your old school, like you said, thumper, but he does really, I think, have a pretty well-rounded skill set. First thing I want to mention, I think he has great footwork, and that's not something you always see from running backs. And I think it's really important. He has like happy feet, always moving, right? So he's always able to kind of adjust his, to change direction quickly and kind of adjust on the fly. He's above average contact balance, big boy, doesn't get taken down easily, great vision, ability to read the line as the play develops and react, right? He's creative. He can create yards on his own. He uses his vision to find holes and paths in the defense to expose and take advantage of. I do think he lacks some lateral quickness, though he does have the ability to kind of shake defenders for sure, but he does lose a bit of speed when he does that. And he can get too fancy at times, try too many of the moves, and he's just not that guy at the heart of it. He's just not that guy. So he does lack a little bit of lateral quickness, but he does make up for it with his physicality and ability to take on contact and just overall toughness. I wouldn't really describe him as a natural route runner. Like he's not out there running these crisp, sharp routes and, in cuts and slants, but he can get out there. He does have soft hands. He's a capable pass catcher. You see it on film a ton. You definitely see it there, but it's more like, kind of just coming out of the backfield and more as a check down. But again, I think he can develop that skill set, and he's got plenty to offer in the NFL. Good burst. Absolutely. And I like when I see these guys play really well against good teams in college, and he absolutely dominated LSU. Go watch his LSU tape. I mean, there's not a minute of that game he's not just crushing them. And he also played really well against Alabama. So I love what I see from him in college. I think he's super well-rounded. He comes into the league ready to take over a backfield, like hands down, take over that backfield. Willing and able blocker, can do everything an NFL team asks him to do. So I'm going to be higher on Charbonnet than consensus probably pre-draft. I think he is my running back 2 on film, and he'll probably stay there above Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's a better running back than Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is infinitely more athletic. Let's not get that twisted. He's way faster. I don't think he's as technically sound as a Zach Charbonnet. So yeah, like you can bet on elite traits and stuff like that, and Jahmyr Gibbs definitely has those. I do think that when it comes down to the details, that Charbonnet is elite in some of these traits. It's just not the ones that jump off the page at you and, necessarily hit the highlight reels or create the highlight reels, though he has those too. Can't say Zach Charbonnet doesn't have those. I did do a quick video film review on like 3 running backs, and he was included in there. So you can definitely go check that out on dynastyfootballfactory.com or on the YouTube page. But yeah, love him. Love Zach Charbonnet. Great.
Yes, me too. I think probably right now, I'd have him RB3 right behind Gibbs, but everybody has their own flavor. But yeah, I mean, he's just not a guy that gets talked about a lot. Like I don't see him getting talked about in the top 3 a lot, but 6 foot, 215, like thick,
big.
Like he's just got everything. I like how you said, like, when he gets drafted, unless he's going to a team that already has like a dog, an alpha, he's going to be the guy. I think the NFL is going to like him a whole lot. So,
and honestly, if he went to, and like you said, both the teams you said, Cowboys and Chargers currently have above average to elite running backs, right? I still love it for him. First of all, because Dallas wants to run the ball. They want to run the ball. And the Chargers, if he is there with Eckler, perfect. Let Eckler play, the passing role, kind of reel him in on the touches, get Zach Charbonnet in there, and don't, push him into 300 carries his first year. Please, I won't mind that. Like, I would love him on a great offense, and on a great offense getting 150 to 200 carries his first year, or even touches. Please, like,
sign me up.
Sign me up.
Sign me up.
I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a good player. So
I have nothing bad to say about Charbonnet. Honestly, like I said, the lateral quickness thing is there, but he does everything so well, man. It's gonna be fun to see him play on Sundays. I'm pretty excited. If he busts, I mean, it'll be one of the more shocking busts to me in a while, because he's that technically sound at such a young age and a young spot in the developmental track. Like, he already looks like an NFL running back when he's playing.
Yeah, he does. It's almost this might be a disservice, but like almost like a Derrick Henry light. I don't know. He just big, strong.
Derrick Henry is just like so oddly shaped. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. He shouldn't be as good as he is, right?
It doesn't make sense that his legs hold up, because they seem so tiny compared to the rest of his body. But I think
Lynch was that same way. Wasn't his ankles like this big?
Yeah, he was. Marshawn Lynch was that way. He just wasn't as big and tall. You know what I mean? But Charbonnet is much thicker in the legs, and he has a much lower center of gravity than Derrick Henry does.
Mm-hmm.
He just the way he's built. Like, Derrick Henry probably can shed off more tacklers than anybody, but I just think the way he's built, he runs a little bit different style than Derrick Henry does.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about?
Join our Discord.
Yeah,
and sub to the DFF YouTube page. I'm really trying to grow it. Dropping content on there often, so yeah, check it out.
Cool.
And subscribe to our YouTube page. What I'm talking about, this drops on YouTube every week. If you're a YouTube user, hop on there, subscribe to the Dynasty Underdog YouTube page, watch our show every week. Yeah, do that.
YouTube / one of the slashes, at Dynasty Underdog.
Mm-hmm.
So
nailed it.
Yeah, watch us.
Check us out. Check us out.
Check us out. All right. Well, thank you guys for giving us a listen to this week's episode of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at Willie Beeman DFF. Check out his work at Dynasty Football Factory. Definitely his videos on YouTube, because they're awesome. They're short. Even if you have a really small attention span, he's knocking it out in like a minute or less. And give our buddy, our technical advisor, Josh Goldberg, Josh M. Goldberg 92 on Twitter. Give him a follow as well.
Hell yeah. He should be back next week. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Peace out, fam.
Peace out.
And